Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead, welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, we're going to go over a miracle that Dina Harding experienced in this email. Before I get into that, really quick, here's the update on sharing the Book of Mormon challenge. So we're at 4,610. So now, over the last couple days, we've gotten over the hump of 4,500, and now we're closing in on 5,000. So that's really good news. Another thing, this is actually an update from yesterday, later in the day after the two videos that I put out. But now we've gotten to the next 100 of people sharing the Book of Mormon. We're at, as of right now, 404. So now we're in the 400s, which that's really good too. So please keep this up. Just share the Book of Mormon. Don't just do one. Don't just do two. Exhaust all your options. Share it with everybody that you know that's not a member of the church. Do it however you want to. The more personal, the better. But if you can't really do it in a personal way, just send it anyway, because something is better than nothing. Use the Gospel Library app. Go to Scriptures in the app, and then at the top you'll see a button that says share. And in that way, you can share electronically however you want to: email, text, or direct message on social media. All right, so back to Dina. So I haven't read this yet. You guys know I like to do things raw. That's how I do it. I know it drives some people crazy. That's just how I do it. I like doing it raw. Okay. She says, "Hi Jared, I've been watching your channel since the first part of the year. I wanted to share what I consider a miracle that happened just after conference this October." By the way, she sent this on the 6th of December, so that's how far back I am with these miracle stories. If you've sent me an email with a miracle story, I will get to it. Um, I've realized this is how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do like just one video per email, just short videos, and in that way, I'll be able to do it. My youngest brother was a heroin addict for a couple of decades, and unfortunately, unfortunately, even after losing both legs to heroin, he ultimately lost his battle late this summer and passed away from an overdose. Oh goodness. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Dina. I guess I'm ignorant to drugs, because I've never heard of that before, losing your legs to heroin, but I'm not familiar at all. So if anyone knows why, put it in the comments. I'd love to know how that causes you to lose your legs. Um, anyway, with the church changing the quote unquote rules about temple work being able to be done for immediate family members 30 days after their death earlier this year, I knew right away I wanted to have my husband do his temple work as his proxy as soon as his 30 days had passed. A couple of days before going to do his initiatory and endowment, I had the thought that I was so glad our God is a God of second chances. Almost immediately, a negative thought came to my mind. Quote, "Second chances isn't doctrine. You can't even find that phrase in the scriptures." End quote. I dismissed the thought, and later that day, I searched in the Gospel Library app, and sure enough, no quote unquote second chances was found. As I was cleaning my house, I pulled up YouTube on my phone, and one of your videos was the first in the feed. All I saw was blood moon, and that it was important to, in that it was important. Sorry, and that it was it it was important from back in May, so I clicked on it. I listened to you talk about Pesach Sheni and the gift of second chances. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember doing that video. Yeah, it was a right. There was a blood moon on that day, and it had to do with second chances. Okay, on kabod.org, and the tears were streaming down my face. It was a direct answer to what I believe was a last-ditch effort by Satan to claim my brother and keep me from doing his work. I felt like this temple change was not only to hasten the work, but a literal Pesach Sheni, second chance for so many, including my brother. 30 days after their missed chance to make a sacrifice at the temple due to being defiled and journeying afar off from the covenant path in this life. Reading the experience of an addict on kabod.org was kind of like reading about my brother. We did not have a good relationship for many years after picking up my brother's remains from the funeral home. I went to the cemetery where my dad is buried. He passed during lockdown in 2020 due to the hospitals refusing to operate on non-COVID patients. Oh, for heaven's sake. I'm so sorry about that, Deanna. That and frankly forgave them both for our non-existent relationships. I wanted to follow President Nelson's admonishment to remove contention from my life. The temple was a beautiful experience. I was very surprised to feel the presence of my brother next to me as we knelt at the altar as we did his endowment work. I do not fully comprehend the ways of the Lord, so I felt surprised that I would feel his presence so soon after his death and while doing his work. I guess I thought he might need a little extra time for years of being stubborn. Laugh out loud. My last conversation with him was after he'd had both legs amputated, and I pleaded with him to find the Lord's purpose for preserving his life a second time. He was found floating face up in our pool at 14 months of age, but miraculously survived. Oh, so that was like a close call that first time. Whew. Um, Last miracle for me was walking into the celestial room a couple of weeks later. We had got we had gone to a different temple the next week, so this was our first time back in our temple since doing his work. And I saw him sitting in a chair at the far end of the room. He was beaming and just nodded and smiled as he looked around the room like it was his first time there. He didn't have ceremonial clothing, but was dressed in white. After several minutes, I composed myself enough to go thank him for being there that day, as I was sure it was a man who looked like my brother. My husband saw him too and agreed it looked very much like my brother, albeit with a much different countenance than we'd even known him to have in this life. When I got up to cross the room and thank him, he was gone. Whether it was truly my brother or not, probably doesn't matter. I know the Lord many ways had many ways he let us know of his love for us and my brother, and I definitely feel I saw the face of the Lord in the temple that day. Uh, Born to be our friend, his hands are stretched out still, even for the hopeless and friendless. I plan to share a little of this on my Facebook page soon as part. Okay, I plan to share this on my Facebook page soon as part of sharing the Book of Mormon / Flood the Earth challenge. My brother's first birthday on the other side of the veil is coming up on December 21st. Oh, winter solstice. What a great time of year to testify of the Savior and his goodness. I'm praying for the right words to convey. Thank you for your channel and what you've done. I consider Pesach Sheni to be a pearl of great price in my life. That's really cool, because who would have known? Here I am doing this YouTube channel, just, watching for signs of the times, trying to learn as much as possible. That's about the second coming and stuff. And you just never know how you affect other people. Um, and this is definitely something that we should all think about. The words that you say are important. Following promptings important. Even though you may not see the reason at that moment, the Lord can work through you, and then at some point you'll have the chance to look back and realize the impact that you actually had. Um, I think that's one reason why it's really important to really avoid contention. I'm not the best at it. Um, I'm still. I reserve the right for myself to continue to improve. Um, there's different things I wish I wouldn't have done on my channel, for example, but it's okay. It's in the past, and just I got to try to do better going forward. But anyway, it's just like you never know how you're affecting somebody, and I'm really glad, Dina, that you're telling me this, because it just makes me feel good. Makes me feel that, like, I was a tool, in a sense, in this experience, um, to bring you that thought about second chances. Um, and we know we know that that's what ultimately that's what the spirit world is. Um, we have people in this life, and we don't really know. We don't really know. Only the Lord knows how things are going to work out for a person, because you may have somebody in this life that seems to have had the chance to receive the gospel, but only the Lord really knows if they had a fair chance, because there's all different sorts of factors that come into play where us, with our limited knowledge, may be like, oh, well, that person had the chance, and I guess that they're not going to make it. But we don't truly know that. You'd have to actually be that person, and then furthermore, see that person from the Lord's point of view to know for sure. But that's the beauty of the spirit world, because not everybody does have a fair chance in this life. They really don't, and that's something that I love about our church, is the idea of the spirit world, and that everybody will have a fair chance. Furthermore, when talking about your brother and how quickly it seemed to happen, uh, I'm not so sure that we know how time works per se in the spirit world. Uh, we have heard many times from church leaders talk about how you have people that have been waiting for thousands of years to, um, or hundreds or thousands of years to have their work done. Um, so that would indicate that people are just they're experiencing time the same way that we do, like they're sharing our frame of reference when it comes to time. But whenever I listen to near death experiences, and I always take them all with a grain of salt. Some of them I feel are just flat out fabrications, especially when it feels like they have an agenda. Like, there's a lot of them that'll say things like, "Yeah, I went there and there was no religion, there was no this or that," or um, just like different things like that, where it feels like what they're doing is they're trying to rebuttal religious points of view, like especially if they weren't Christian. There's like a lot of stuff like, yeah, there was no judgment and everything was perfectly fine, as though there's like no such thing as sin. Whenever like a near death experience goes in that direction, I kind of like start thinking, I'm not so sure that you're being genuine, because I know that that's not true. Anyway, it's kind of complicated, but my point is, with near death experiences, um, most, if not all of them, describe it in a sense that there's like no time, that they don't really experience time the same way that we do here. And so like they'll come back and they'll really struggle. They'll say, I'm going to tell this story as though it's a story, as though this happened after this and this happened after this, but in reality it's impossible to describe the experience because it wasn't really like that. I just have to like try and share it using words, which is inadequate for what I just experienced. But they'll talk about how, I've heard them say sometimes like they don't know really how much time went by while they were there. It could have been a few seconds, or it could have been 1,000 years. Like that's how unreal it was. And so what I mean to say is that in thinking about your brother, who knows how things operate over there. Um, it may seem like to us here on Earth that it was just like a short amount of time. It's like you can't possibly have made the necessary changes within that 30 days. But that's like one thing to think about, that they may be experiencing time a bit differently, or maybe a lot differently from how we experience it here. So I guess it doesn't really surprise me. And who knows, even if they do experience time the same way that we do, maybe 30 days over there, as soon as you pass away, it must be some kind of experience, and who knows how quickly things can progress over there. without the limitations from this life. So there's just like a lot of things to think about. But I guess I'm not surprised that it could happen within that amount of time. Okay, and then the last thing that she says here is also off topic, but it's funny to me that you lived in Surprise. She's referring to Surprise, Arizona. It's a suburb of, I'll show you right now in case you're curious. You probably aren't. Surprise, AZ. I love Surprise. It's a nice place. So here's the Phoenix metro area. Most members of the church seem to be on this side of the valley, like Mesa, Gilbert, Chandler. We have the Mesa Temple, we have the Gilbert Temple, and then the Phoenix Temple is like up here in North Phoenix. Those are the three temples right now. I would hope that the next one would be in the West Valley over here, because this is where I lived. I lived in Surprise before the Army, and then after the Army, I just went south to Goodyear. I love both. I love this whole part of the valley. I love all of Phoenix, but I'm more of like a West Valley person. I especially like Buckeye right here because there's like a lot of like farmland, and this is kind of like Buckeye is what inspired us really to want to move to Kansas and do homesteading. Well, it was a part of it. It wasn't the reason, but it was a part of it. All the farmland over here. So anyway, she's talking about my pre-Army days. I lived up here in Surprise, near, let's see, where's Litchfield? There's Dysart. Litchfield, like in this area right here. Here's Greenway, here's Waddell, if you're familiar with that place. So, also off topic, but it's funny to me that you lived in Surprise, where I've lived for the past 20 years. You've been stationed at Fort Hood, and I have a son, 68 Whiskey / combat medic. I said whiskey because that's, the phonetic alphabet in the military. 68W or 68 Whiskey, a combat medic stationed there now. You trained at Fort Lee, and I used to live a few minutes away from Fort Lee in a little town called Hopewell, which most people not in the Army have never heard of, which most people not in the Army have ever heard of either place. Laugh out loud. It's funny because I wonder if Hopewell, let's see, Fort Lee, Virginia, because since like once you're done with basic training, you go to AIT in the Army. That's like the tech school, and then when you get to that point, you have more leeway with what you can do. So, for example, we were at that point able to go off base or off post. Rather, we don't call our installations bases. We call them posts. And there was a mall over here. Let's see, mall. Southgate Square. Maybe this was the place. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. I'm just wondering if Hopewell is the place where I used to go to the mall off post. Whatever. That is funny, Dina. That's really cool. Like I said, I love Surprise, and I loved Fort Hood. Fort Lee was okay. It was really hot, very, very humid. It's the first time I ever saw a firefly was at Fort Lee, so that was cool. Anyway, thank you, Dina, for your email. I'm so glad that you had that experience and that you shared it with us. Everybody else, make sure to share the Book of Mormon. Let's keep working on this. Let's get the number of shares up into the thousands, because you can do it. You can do it. Please, at least share one. At the very least, just share one. Now, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share this, and I'll talk to you guys later.